The Disenfranchised Podcast. Do you see? A podcast about franchises of one. Do you see? Films that fancy themselves full-fledged franchises before falling flat on their face after the first film. Do you see? Your host, Stephen Foxworthy. Do you see? His co-host, Brett Wright. Do you see?
What the fuck?
Yes? Am I supposed to? When do I come in? I don't.
His other co-host, Tucker. Do you see? That was my idea for the intro. I don't know. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. Should I just do the regular one? I don't know.
No, I think it worked, but I think if we had known.
I offered to tell you. You said no.
Oh, that's true. That is on me. Yeah. Fuck.
I was like, you want me to tell you what I'm going to do? You're like, nope, I would be surprised.
I was surprised, and I quite enjoyed it, but also it caused a bit of confusion because it kind of sounded like you were introducing us. So I don't think either of us knew if we were supposed to respond to that.
Yeah. Which I think kind of adds to the humor, but that's my sense of humor.
Oh, I'm keeping it. I'm keeping it.
I was hoping
this is staying in, right?
Yes. Sustained, yes. It's all staying in.
But yeah, that's what we are and why we're here. And Tucker, we just did what we used to call the Tucker's Choice episodes. We're now calling them Straight Up. Yeah. I've noticed, by the way, I'm just going to air this out on the air because why not? You're not using the logo that I created for Straight Up to put these out.
I forgot that there was one.
I made you a special.
I know.
Straight
and
up
you know what?
Show logo.
Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna go back on every one of them and edit it and change it on every single platform.
That's all I ask, really.
No, I can't believe I forgot about it because it was really, really good. Because it was Paula Abdul.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, there it is. Okay,
Paula Abdul.
There it is. Yeah, I've got it right here in front of me. I'm downloading it now, and I'm putting it into the logos and banners folder in my pod.
There you go.
It's happening right now, live.
Live on the air. This is how we do it, folks. This is how we do it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we are the Disenfranchised Podcast, and we are here to talk about Tucker. We just did a Tucker's Choice episode, and technically we're doing another one because this is one that you kind of mandated be put on the schedule, and it just happened to fall the week after an actual episode of Straight Up, which is essentially the Tucker's Choice episode.
Look, I don't feel like I had to talk you into it though.
I was I like this movie. I like this movie a lot.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to talk me into it that hard. I just find the placing of it, and again, I was the one who scheduled it, so this is all on me, but I find it a little ironic. Yeah, don't you think?
It's pretty rad. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And so what are we talking about this week, Tucker?
Oh gosh, Steven, we're about to hunt some men because we are watching Manhunter.
We're hunting men. Hallelujah. We're hunting men. Michael Mann's 1986 film Manhunter, starring William Petersen, Tom Noonan, Dennis Farina, Brian Cox, Kim Greist, Joan Allen, Stephen Lang. There's a Frankie Faison in here as well. You love to see that guy. Dan Butler in here also. What a cast. Gentlemen, I do dare say, what a picture.
A wild Chris Elliott.
Yes, thank you. There's a Bill Smitrovich in there too. The November Man's own Bill Smitrovich in this movie.
Yep.
So it's a wild cast, a veritable who's who of 80s Midwest character actors in this movie. Truly, we love to see it. The very first movie ever to feature the character of Hannibal Lecter. That is its major claim to fame. And
I
kind
prefer
of an odd
the
one
spelling.
for us to talk about.
I prefer the spelling on this one with the K. Yeah, I like that.
Because I don't think that's how Harris spells it in the book.
No, that's the only place where it's spelled with a K.
Yeah.
But I just think it looks cool. You put a K, sure. It's like Mortal Kombat. If that were a C, it wouldn't hit as hard.
I'm saying. That's fair. I mean, you got the C and the K. You got both.
See, they could I'm glad they put the K in Lecter, because if they had substituted in Brian Cox's last name, I feel like it would have been a little awkward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
That is, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Off to a great start.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look,
job,
I think we were doomed from my intro. Let's be
No.
honest.
We love this movie.
We do love this. Well, Tucker and I do. Brett is, I think, more mixed than we are. But
indifferent. I literally have no feelings about this movie.
Oh.
I watched it and I was like, cool, that was a movie I watched. I mean, Brian Cox is great. I was like, oh, it's Brian Cox. I love that guy. He does a great Hannibal Lecter. It's fantastic. I wish he'd continued to do that character because it would have been great. Other than that, I don't. Sure, it's a movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's a decent movie. I just don't care.
Oh.
There's nothing to care about here. Really.
Stephen Lang is so baby-faced in this.
You would never guess that that's the bad guy from Avatar. Would never in a million
wait, that's the guy
years.
from Don't Breathe? What?
Yes.
No way.
Exactly. Like if I gave a Gen Zer like 10 guesses, they would never figure it out.
He looks like the human personification of Roger Rabbit in this movie.
He does with those suits. Like, were those ever stylish? And maybe that's the point, but he's wearing just the most garish suits I've ever seen on a human being in my life.
And he has the brightest, most ridiculous head of red hair that I've ever seen.
Is that his natural hair color? I don't think I've ever seen another Stephen Lang performance where he's not gray. So
that's how I instantly knew, even though they gender swapped the character in the TV show before they even said who it was, I knew exactly who it was because of that red hair.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's Freddy. That's fucking Freddy. Gotcha. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's a Brian Fuller show, so there has to be a female character with a traditionally male name. That's just kind of his thing.
And I liked the new interpretation of the character too. I think it works really well as a female character. In fact, in some ways, it works a little better.
I like the character as a female. I don't like how they used her on that show.
Really?
Yeah, I don't care for that. I didn't care for it.
All right.
That's me. I may be in the minority.
That's fair.
I don't know. But I remember being like really kind of dissatisfied with that character. So I guess let's get into it, because this is the first adaptation of not of a Thomas Harris novel, but of a Hannibal Lecter, one of his Hannibal Lecter novels. The man has written 6 novels, and 4 of them are Hannibal Lecter novels. Stephen King says
he didn't want to write.
Right. Stephen King says of Thomas Harris, the thing about about Tom is that he hates writing. He's a writer who hates writing. Which I just find absolutely hilarious. And yeah, he basically got strong-armed into writing the last 2, which is why they're not as strong as the others.
They're dog shit, the books and the films.
Yeah. So, but there you go. I would say the film's a little more so, but
there are some fun moments in Hannibal, but overall, it's just not fucking worth watching.
I'm going to argue there are 2 truly good Hannibal Lecter movies, and this is one of them.
Agreed.
I'm sure we all know what the other one is, because obviously
Hannibal Rising. Obviously, yeah, we're
no, fuck that movie. That movie's so far removed from anything that anyone a fan of any of the other movies wants to see. No. Like, whose head was up whose ass when they decided to make that movie?
No, it was Dino De Laurentiis's gun against Thomas Harris's head is what caused that movie to be made.
Louise.
So
what a fucking huge misstep from conception.
Yes, 100%.
My dad doesn't even like that movie, and he's like all about those Hannibal movies. But we'll get into that when we get into my history of the film.
I was going to say, let's get into our histories, Tucker. If you would let me finish a damn sentence.
Maybe.
Straight up, maybe.
Maybe.
But yeah, let's talk our personal histories with these movies. Brett, why don't you start us off? What is your history with Hannibal Lecter, the character, with Manhunter as a film? My guess is this is your first watch, but I could be wrong. Lay it all out on the line for me, buddy.
Yeah, this is my first time with Manhunter. I never got the appeal of Silence of the Lambs. I appreciate it for what it is, um, but I just never. I think part of the problem is that it's so disjointed in its movies. Like, it doesn't have the same actors playing the same characters, and we know how much I hate that.
That happens often, actually.
Yeah. In this franchise, it definitely does.
There's, I think, one character that's played consistently by the same actor the whole time, and that actor plays another character in this movie. So
yeah.
So I think that was part of the reason I never really got into it. But other than that, I don't know. Like, horror fans love Silence of the Lambs, so this is another one of those situations where feel free to take my horror fan card if you deem it necessary.
It's just been revoked.
I just never got the appeal. It's cool, I guess, but that's
I think both this and Silence of the Lambs. We were talking before about our IMDb genreification of films. It would be the third. Horror would be the third one out of 3. It would be the last genre listed for me.
Yeah, same. That's what I don't get either. Is like it's a lot of horror fans herald it as like a fantastic horror movie, and I'm
because
like,
it's gory, and that's all.
Why?
Some action movies are gory, It's a
serial
dude
likes
movie.
to eat other dudes. Okay.
Yeah, dude.
I think it's some of it also is the serial killer angle. It's in particularly Silence of the Lambs, it's the way that the tension is played with, the way that Demi kind of ratchets up the tension, particularly in those final scenes in the basement. Like, I think that is played absolutely masterfully. I mean,
there's a slasher element to the ending of Silence of the Lambs,
100%
for sure. But I think overall, it's like a kind of it's a police movie. It's a police thriller.
It's a crime movie for sure.
Yeah,
like that's number one with a bullet. But I think because of how transgressive they tend to be in terms of like content and subject matter, a lot of people, myself included, would probably be tempted to put them at least in the horror adjacent category.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah, I would put it there, but not solidly in horror specifically. So, but that's just my opinion.
That's just one podcaster's opinion.
That's but you don't have to take my word for it.
Dun-dun-dun. Dude. I should get that as a soundbite so I can play that anytime someone says you don't have to take my word for it. We can make that a recurring bit on the show. I like that.
So it sounds like Tucker has more of a history. Tucker, what's your history?
Well, I started watching this film.
Mighty wind that? Is that what you were doing there?
I did just mighty wind that.
Fucking A. I love that.
So, my history with this film is that Manhunter is my first experience watching anything Thomas Harris or Hannibal Lecter related. We had it on VHS when I was a kid because we rented it and my dad really liked it, so we bought it. And eventually, when Silence of the Lambs came out, I was starting to kind of get old enough to maybe watch some of that stuff with some supervision. And so I watched Manhunter with my dad. And boy, did I think it was fantastic. Of course, at that age, I couldn't appreciate it for a lot of the things that I appreciate for it now. But I still, even as like a younger teen or a kid, I did appreciate it and I enjoyed it. And I also liked Silence of the Lambs. And but my dad is a really big fan of the series, of all of the films. He likes all of them, except for Hannibal Rising, which he only kind of
aforementioned Hannibal Rising.
I fucked that one up because he really liked that movie, and then one day we were talking about it, and I wasn't thinking about it, and I just started talking about all the things that sucked about it, and like it made him realize that those things sucked, and I ruined the movie for him. So I kind of feel bad about that.
Oh, you bastard.
I do that sometimes. I don't even mean to. I don't realize that that's what I'm going to do to somebody. It's like, how sometimes I have the power to change your rating a bit before the end of the podcast? I have the negative power of that too sometimes. And I don't always know when I'm doing it, and it's too late sometimes. I'm like, oh, fuck, I just ruined this movie for this person who really liked it. Fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's a shitty movie anyway, so
I mean, it is the worst of these movies with a bullet. So
Yeah. But yeah, that's my history with it. It's kind of always been a part of my cinematic knowledge, I guess. It's always been there from a very young age, and I watch it pretty consistently. Probably every couple of years I'll watch it. I have it on VHS, and I've always had it on VHS. I've never had it on anything else. So I was going to just pop in the VHS like I normally do when I watch it, but I thought, I've never seen this the way the film is intended to be seen.
mm.
And though the film does lend itself to the 4:3 format, I'm also really interested in Michael Mann as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know what? I think it's way past time for me to see this in the original aspect ratio. And holy shit,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good. I mean, it's a good looking movie in 4:3, surprisingly, but like,
Oh yeah.
in scope, holy shit, it looks fantastic. And I knew that it would, because in the pan and scan version, especially during the beginning credits and the ending shot,
Mm-hmm.
uh they don't even try to pan and scan because everything is so spread out. They just automatically force it into widescreen.
Mm.
You know how they do that sometimes, like during the credits and stuff. If the
Right.
credits are situated in such a way that you kind of have to see the whole screen, like for a little bit it'll be in widescreen, then it'll immediately go back to pan and scan.
Mm-hmm.
It does that in the Manhunter VHS more than you would think a movie would.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always kind of been interested in watching it in its original format, and now I finally have. And let me say, like, I loved this movie before, but holy shit, I kind of have a new appreciation for it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I'm going to stop watching it on VHS, but it's going to be more of a rotation. Where like next time I watch it, I'll probably watch it on VHS, but then after that, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna stream it, or I might get a 4K if that exists.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous film, and the three shot, there are like a couple of back-to-back shots within the first like 10 minutes of this movie that just made me go, holy shit, this thing is so well shot. Dante Spinati, I want to shout out the cinematographer here, also worked on LA Confidential. See our previous episode on LA
Mm-hmm.
Confidential. Worked with Michael Mann on Heat and Last of the Mohicans, so he was a Mann guy for a while. Um, but the shot where Dennis Farina and Kim Greist are sitting in the kitchen, and they just do a behind shot, and they're kind of sitting in silhouette at opposite ends of a table, and you just see this absolutely gorgeous sunset off off of the Florida coast, just absolutely beautiful. And then the very next shot is William Petersen and Kim Greist in bed, and
And
the
it's
whole
all
thing is got
blue.
that blue tint. It's just gorgeous, just
That's
back to back
look.
shots,
That's what I love
absolutely incredible.
about the lighting and the coloring in this film, is that it will go from looking like the most beautiful postcard you've ever seen to looking like a fucking silent movie.
Yes.
And I love that, how you'll go to like full color, but then there will be a situation like with the darkroom shit where it's like all in red and stuff.
Yeah.
There's so many instances in this movie where it just leans on one color for a whole fucking scene,
Yeah.
and it's fantastic. It looks beautiful.
To great
Beautiful.
effect, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. This is, I think, the second of the Hannibal Lecter films that I saw after Silence of the Lambs, which I didn't see until I was in college because I was a scaredy cat as a kid, and this is never a movie I would have been able to watch with my parents growing up. So I didn't watch this one in college, and then a couple years later was like, oh, they made a movie before that one. Wonder what that one's about. And watched that one, and watched this one rather, and just thought it was great. I was like, who's this guy who's not Anthony Hopkins who played Hannibal Lecter? I don't think I knew who Brian Cox was at the time.
He's in everything.
He is now, yeah. And I think at the time I knew him as, if I did know him, I knew him as the guy that played Stryker in X2. Was
He
kind
was
of
in Rushmore, man.
I
He's
still haven't seen
the
Rushmore.
voice of McDonald's now.
He is, and I
Yeah,
love
he is.
that for him. Because he's making mad bank on those commercials.
Getting that
and
French fry money, dude.
Yeah, he is. Good for him. But since then, of course, I've seen him in so many things and play so many different roles and so many different. But this is so different from the stuff I see him in now. Like most people know him as Logan Roy from Succession now. That's kind of the role that's really kind of made him stand out and kind of become his iconic role. I will say when I found out that they were making American Gods into a TV show, he was my choice to play Mr. Wednesday. If you've ever read the Neil Gaiman book, American Gods, Brian Cox's was the face I saw in my head as I was reading that book.
I see that.
Yeah.
I like Ian McShane in the show, but like, I think Brian Cox would have fucking killed it. I do.
Truly. I like both of them equally. That's difficult. That's really difficult.
It's a regular Sophie's Choice.
I will say that from what I've seen, Brian Cox is better at comedy than Ian McShane. Ian McShane can hold his own in a comedy.
He can.
But I don't know if you've seen the Super Trooper movies, but Brian Cox is a funny motherfucker when he needs to be.
Look, and that's
hilarious in those movies.
Look, a comedic actor can do drama very well. It's difficult for someone who can only do drama to venture into comedy.
Oh, yeah.
It's why like comedic performances from guys like De Niro and Pacino don't hit as well. Because those guys are dramatic actors. That's comedy's not really their bread and butter. So it's a lot more difficult for them to do those roles than it is for someone comedic. And Cox strikes me as the guy who's got a real sense of humor, but has, because of the way he looks and particularly the way he sounds, has mostly been cast in largely dramatic roles as a result, but has, as you say, Tucker, the comedy chops for sure. And then of course, as the common story, the common refrain on this podcast, during the pandemic, I watched all of the Hannibal Lecter movies. I think by that point seen most of Red Dragon on like TNT, and had seen like
they used to play it on cable all the time.
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of Hannibal, but I watched them all. I have my rankings, my top my top 5 Hannibal Lecter films ranked.
Okay.
I'll start at number 5. Number 5.
Yeah, there you
go. Hannibal Rising. That movie blows, and not in a fun way. In 4th place, I have Hannibal. Really bad. Why did that movie get made? I have no idea. The fact that Jonathan Demme and Jodie Foster didn't want to return should have been a red flag. In 3rd place, Red Dragon. Kind of by default, really. That movie has a better cast than it deserves, but a worse director than it deserves. So it's Brett Ratner, like not to the caliber of the 3 earlier filmmakers in this franchise. In number 2, I have this film, Manhunter. And at number 1, I have a movie I consider to be absolutely perfect, Silence of the Lambs. So, yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I think mine would be exactly the same, except swap Manhunter and Silence of the Lambs. I like this one better than Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, which is, legit. And let's be clear, the reason that we're able to cover this movie on this podcast is because of Red Dragon. Like, if they had not gone back and made another Hannibal Lecter movie, remade this movie with Anthony Hopkins, the guy from Silence of the Lambs, we would not be able to talk about this film because technically, Silence of the Lambs is a sequel to Manhunter, only with none of the creative team returning for it.
I understand what you're saying, Steven, and I agree with you, but I've never considered Silence of the Lambs to be in the same universe as Manhunter.
Which is fine.
Never, ever, ever, ever in my long-legged life.
But I mean, technically.
But technically, yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But technically. But there's like a weird rights issue to where like you can either do Silence of the Lambs or the other films in the Hannibal franchise, but not both. Which is why Clarice Starling never showed up in the Hannibal series, and why the Clarice series couldn't mention Hannibal Lecter at all. Like, is weird.
That's the reason I can't get into this franchise. I just can't do it. It's annoying.
I'm disappointed that we didn't get any Silence of the Lambs stuff in the Hannibal series, but the more I consider it, I'm glad that we didn't, because the main focus of that show should be the relationship between Hannibal and Will Graham. And what the fuck does Will Graham have to do in a Silence of the Lambs story?
He
Nothing.
doesn't. He's
Stay at
not in.
home.
He's literally not in it at
Stays at
all.
fucking home. That's it. So I'm kind of glad they didn't do it, even though I would have liked to have seen what they would have done with it. Maybe they would have found a way to bring Will into it somehow. I don't know.
Right. But yeah, like Will's character, the Q Dancy's Will Graham becomes essentially Clarice Starling for the purposes of that show. And to be clear, the show is very good.
So good.
I would put Mads Mikkelsen is top tier Hannibal Lecter performer.
He's the best Hannibal.
There's a case to be made. I'm not 100% sure if I agree, but he's top 2 for sure.
I think that the series is so well made and so well written that it wouldn't matter how good Manhunter or Silence of the Lambs is, because that's only a combined like 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
The show is better. The show is better than any of that, just because it has more time to let the characters breathe, and the filmmaking is as good as the movies. So I would say that I like Manhunter is my favorite piece of Hannibal stuff, but the series is you can't. It's impossible to beat the series Hannibal with any sort of Hannibal content.
Have you seen the show, Brett?
I have not.
You should.
I think you'd like it.
I think you would.
Exact reasons I just said, I don't really want to.
Because I think you would dig it.
It's really good,
Brett.
I'm around.
It tells the stories, or it endeavors to tell the stories of the 3 books that it is able to. The final season gets a little rushed just because they realized it was going to be the last one.
Except it's a bromance.
Yes.
At the same time.
That's the key difference. Plus, you've got incredible performances from your boy Mads Mikkelsen, Hugh Dancy, Larry Ma-fucking Fishburne up in this motherfucker. Like it real good.
It's so good.
You've got recurring guest stars, Susie Eddie Izzard, Gillian Anderson is in that motherfucker a lot. Like it get good though. It get real good.
I've watched that entire series 3 times, including when it aired.
So I'm just saying, man,
fucking good.
It might be the lone exception for you of Hannibal ephemera that you enjoy.
Give it 3 episodes, Brett. I encourage you to give it 3 episodes.
Is it its own self-contained thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, I don't want you to feel pressured to do it, so I will not be offended if you do not watch it. But I think that you would like it if you gave it some episodes.
I think you would. I really do. Yeah. It feels like a Brett kind of thing. And it is. It's completely self-contained. You don't need any of the movies. You don't need the Clarice show, which legally cannot be part of it anyway. Like, it is its own thing.
Yeah. Real good.
All right. I might.
Real good.
He says begrudgingly.
Yeah, if you don't, that's fine too.
Skeptical.
I'm not going to be mad if you don't.
Skeptical is all. That's all.
I mean, and that's fine. That's fine. I get the public. I get the public obsession with a Hannibal Lecter-esque figure, with this kind of like, because it's the tension, the friction between this idea of the gentleman serial killer. It's the same reason why like the gentleman thief was such an archetype in the 1800s, early 1900s.
And now we have the gentleman pirate.
Right. But I think Hannibal Lecter is like the example of the gentleman serial killer. Like he's the one, because he is this accomplished professional, medical degree,
sophisticated, smart as hell.
Right. Who does these incredibly heinous, awful things. There's a fascination to that. It's the same kind of morbid fascination that causes people to like listen to true crime and kind of glorify these horrific things that happen in these people's lives. Like, oh, how could someone who's seemingly so normal behave so abominably? How can a man who's just a birthday clown on the weekends actually be a heinous serial killer? How can this small business owner be, doing these horrible things? It kind of becomes one of those weird societal, cultural fascinations. And I think that this franchise and this character have played a large part in it becoming such a cultural fascination.
Yeah, dude. I
Yeah,
agree with
I think
all
that's
of
a
that.
very astute observation. The rise of true crime has given rise to the popularity of Hannibal Lecter.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know. It's
Or
not a
resurgence, if you will.
right. It's not a character that I'm particularly drawn to. What I find interesting in these stories are the people that are his foils. I like the Will Graham, like the thing that he says, you were able to sniff me out because we're so much alike. You want the scent, sniff yourself. Like that line is really, I think, very telling, and that's Will Graham's central like psychological torment through this film is, am I like these people? Am I so much like him? Am I just one bad day away from becoming this kind of terrible person? And for Clarice, it's all of that, but fighting against that, and also the whole stigma of being a woman in a professional male dominated environment is such a huge part of what I think makes Silence of the Lambs so compelling and so interesting. Like I find those characters far more interesting than I find Hannibal Lecter, which is why I think once the franchise starts to focus on him instead of the foils, it
Mm-hmm.
kind of starts to unravel and fall apart. I think Michael Mann gets it right here. He intentionally underuses the Hannibal Lecter character.
Yo, they talk about him more than we see him in this fucking movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He gets like maybe 5 minutes of screen time total.
And that's I think a really brilliant move, because
I agree.
Mann realizes they're gonna want more, and so I need to leave them wanting more of this character. So I'm going to use him as sparingly as possible. Anthony Hopkins wins Best Lead Actor for Silence of the Lambs, despite having less than 15 minutes of screen time in Silence
because
of the Lambs.
just like Brian Cox in this film, I think their performances I don't think are similar, but they're effective in the same ways.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to see, when you first meet Hannibal Lecter in either of those films, he leaves enough of an impression that all you have to do is hear them talking about him and you're like, oh shit.
It's the Harry Lime conundrum. Like, have you guys seen The Third Man? Carol Reed's The Third Man?
No, surprisingly.
With Orson Welles, Joe Cotton, and Alita Valley.
Oh, I'm very familiar. I've just never seen it.
Wonderful film. Absolutely incredible film. One of Orson Welles' best performances, and it's not even in a film he directed, but to hear him talk about it later, like someone, I think he was talking to Peter Bogdanovich, and Bogdanovich was just like, you were so incredible in that film. And he's like, I had to be. Like, there was no way I couldn't be, because they spend the whole first third of the movie just talking about me. So by the time I show up, you've got this expectation built up in your head as to who Harry Lime is, and all I have to do is smile on the street and everybody thinks I'm doing incredible work. And that's very true. And I think Hannibal Lecter in these two films in particular is very much a similar kind of character, is that there's so much emphasis on him, so much talk. He's built up to such a degree that when you see him, you're immediately compelled. And fortunately, you hire two incredible actors to play the role in those films. So you're immediately hooked. You're immediately brought in as a result. And I mean, that's what I would call a Harry Lime role.
When are we gonna have Hannibal Hannibal No Way Home, where Brian Cox and fucking
Hannibal-verse.
Hannibal-verse, there it is.
Anthony Hopkins, and that kid that played him in that last movie, boy, and we'll get
dead.
Mads. Oh no.
Yeah,
I said something bad about him. I'm sorry.
Gaspard Ulliel is.
Look, I thought he was terrible. Recently. I thought he was terrible in that movie, but I'm sad that he's dead. For sure.
Yeah, he died in 2022.
Wow. That's sad. Now I feel bad for saying he's bad. I mean, he is bad in it, but
the movie does not serve him well.
It couldn't serve anybody. It wouldn't matter who you put in that role. It's like you put Paul Giamatti in that, and it's still not going to be good. I'll say it. It's that bad of a movie. Even Paul Giamatti cannot save it.
Come on now. Let's not be too hasty.
Apparently, he died after being critically injured in a skiing accident.
That sucks.
He collided with another skier at an intersection between two slopes and suffered serious brain trauma as a result, and died as a result of those conditions.
Oh, slight sidebar, you guys. I read this week. Remember how Treat Williams died a little bit ago?
Yeah.
Tragically in an automobile accident. He was in a motorcycle. I read kind of the whole story of it. And so, like, your boy Treat Williams was, like, real active in his small community. And, like, everybody knew him and he knew everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
And the dude that ran him over was, like, his best friend. His straight up best friend. And like even when they tried to prosecute him and stuff, like Treat Williams' family came up and they were like, yeah, dude, that was his best friend. This guy's already suffering enough and he didn't even mean to do it. So can we just not like do anything about it?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I thought that was wild. I knew he had died and I knew it was an accident, but that just adds a layer of tragedy to it for like everybody involved.
Yeah, agreed.
Anyway, tangent over. I just thought that was interesting. I read about that this week and I thought about it because
so
that other guy died.
When they do the Into the Hannibal verse, unfortunately, Gaspard Ulliel will not be part of it.
Yeah. We don't really need a younger one because all the modern ones, even though they aren't the same age as actors, they're all playing around the same age, I think. So
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Do we have like I know you said, well, I guess Brett hasn't seen Mads yet, so I was going to say, do we have a definitive ranking of Hannibals? But
not yet.
Not yet. We don't.
I have a ranking.
I do too,
and it's controversial because I feel like it's probably going to be the opposite of everyone else's. Because 3 is Anthony Hopkins, which I love his performance as Hannibal. Don't get it twisted. It's just I have to pick from 3 great performances.
Right.
So give me some slack. And then Brian Cox, and then your boy Mads.
I feel like if Brian Cox had more of an opportunity to breathe in the role, I think he'd probably be my number 1 because I love Brian Cox.
But I like how nonchalant and kind of he doesn't put as much gravitas into it, which I think really works for him being creepy in a different way.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. It's a very different performance, and if you see this movie after you see Silence of the Lambs, you're comparing it to that very iconic performance that Hopkins gives, and it's not that. He's doing something completely different. He's making completely different choices. Mm-hmm. He's basing his performance off of a real Scottish-American serial killer named Peter Manuel, or Manuel, I'm not sure which it is, Manuel. And he also, like, I think at one point he said that Mann told him to play it like a petulant schoolboy. And so you can see elements of that in the performance as well. Whereas, like, Anthony Hopkins is, like, turning the creep up to 11.
He's dangerously almost over the top.
It's so close. It's a
to that line
razor's edge
just, like,
performance.
Sits there. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a razor's edge performance. It's like one bad choice away from being terrible. But he walks that line, and I think that's why he deserved to win the Oscar that year, frankly.
Yeah.
Because that his performance is so good. But I mean, yeah, Mads is phenomenal. I feel bad putting Cox at 3rd, but like
they're all great performances.
Where else does he like?
3rd is not bad.
Yeah. It's like the first 3 are like tied for 1st, and then unfortunately there's the other one. Really is kind of what it comes down to, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But
R.I.P.
Yeah. Gone but not forgotten.
Well, not anymore, at least. Now I know. Wowzers.
But yeah, I don't know. Let's get into the plot. Let's do the plot. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah, I feel like it's about time for the plot. Yeah.
I'm thinking plot, gentlemen. So this is the plot in 60 seconds. This is a part of the show where we, at the behest of the D6 of Destiny. Yes, I brought it on vacation with me because I knew I was going to be recording on vacation.
Did you I would forget to bring dice up here for the millionth time.
Did you bring the coin of justice in case Brett bailed?
I did not.
Oh,
because
I
had faith in my
believed.
friends.
You believed.
Okay, all right.
And my faith was rewarded with Brett's attendance on this episode.
And also, I always have the Canadian quarter of indifference, so it's like whatevs.
So we've got
serves the same function. Yeah.
At the behest of the D6 of Destiny, we will decide which of us will be recounting the plot of 1986's Manhunter in 60 seconds or less. Per the rules, 1 and 2 are me on the die, 3 and 4 are Brett, 5 and 6 are Tucker. We're going to roll the D6 and see what she says. Ah, motherfucker. It is 2.
Yes, I got to pee.
Hell yeah.
So, Brett, I guess that means you're putting 60 seconds on the clock because Tucker is already out of the room.
Indeed.
Hopefully you guys heard that cackle from the other room of his small room, because I sure did.
All right, you can begin when you want to begin.
Will Graham is a retired FBI agent. He's called back by his boss, Dennis Farina, for one last job. He quit after he got too close to the Hannibal Lecter case, and this case is confounding everyone in the same way. Turns out there's a guy who's called the Tooth Fairy because he bites all his victims, and they try to find him. It turns out it's actually this weird guy named Francis Dollarhide, who's got like a weird mouth thing. He works at a phone booth. He's in love with a blind girl, but he kills people because he's
30 seconds.
He's got all this like sexual frustration that he can't get out. So he takes it out on these unsuspecting families that he finds by processing the film that he's processing. Will figures it out by magic. He's been conferring with Lecter. Lecter gives him his home address, and Will has to stop him before. So there's a ticking clock now. He finds out where he lives, figures out it's the guy, and busts through a window while Inagata DeVita plays, shoots him multiple times, and saves the blind girl. Returns home to Florida with his family. Credits.
Yeah, and then Phil Collins.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Hey, Steven, you said that Francis Dollarhide was a weird guy, and you're not wrong. But it reminded me of something that really stuck out to me about this film the first time I saw it. This was the first time that I had seen a villain like humanized.
Yeah.
Because you see this guy just in his daily life when he's not being a fucking creep. When he's just doing normal person stuff.
Yeah.
Having normal interactions. And I had never seen anything like that before. The bad guys are always just the fucking bad guys, you know?
Even his normal interactions aren't super normal. Like his idea of a great first date is taking a blind woman to pet a sedated tiger.
That's actually really fucking rad. It's what comes after rad. That's weird. When he's watching the movies, investigating his next murder, just hanging out with this blind gal, being like, oh, yeah, it's a thing. Then I'm just watching a thing. Don't worry about it.
Just doing homework. Yeah.
That's the weird part. Yeah.
That's the tiger thing is rad as shit.
Actual tiger.
I would go home with that guy if he took me to pet a tiger.
That was an actual sedated tiger and an actual veterinarian administering that.
Unlike Red Dragon.
Correct. Very obviously CGI. Fake tiger. Yeah. Come on. I mean, this movie's so much better than Red Dragon.
That's the one thing I don't get. Like so many things I understand why filmmakers prefer CGI, even if I don't. But animals can be some of the best actors. Yes, they can be difficult to work with, but have you seen The Thing? Like, despite the cast being stacked, that dog at the beginning is the best actor in that movie. That dog is convincing as shit. I believe everything that dog does.
One of our finest canine actors.
Holy shit. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, and not only can you get good animal actors to give good, convincing performances, but I've never seen a CGI version of an actual real-life animal that looked like anything but CGI. Never. Not once. Except maybe a fish. They could probably fool me with a fish. That's about it. Because they're real smooth anyway. So...
They do be smooth, though.
They do be smooth, yeah.
Speaking of Francis Dollarhide, you know what Tom Noonan is really fucking good at?
Acting?
Playing weird fucking creeps.
Oh, yeah. That falls under acting, I think, yeah.
like he's the Reaper in Last Action Hero. See our previous episode on Last Action Hero.
I instantly recognized him. Oh, look, it's the Ripper. It's great. It's fantastic. I love this movie.
He is Frankenstein in future episode of this podcast, The Monster Squad.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Another fantastic movie.
Like, he's just really good.
Fred Dekker movie.
Yeah.
Because we did Night of the Creeps.
We have yes, we did. We have a dedicated Fred Dekker guest, too.
Y'all did.
Our buddy Brian Kuiper has literally agreed to come on anytime we cover Fred Dekker, and I'm going to hold him to that.
Monster Squad us sooner than later.
That includes when we eventually inevitably cover what's the name of RoboCop 3 on Patreon. We will absolutely have him on for that, because that is a Fred Dekker movie, for good or ill.
But for unfranchised, but
yes,
the live action TV movies are direct sequels to RoboCop 3.
We don't count made for TV shit. Theatrically released only.
All right, yeah. And there was a show for okay.
I've never been a fan of that rule either, for the record, but
yeah. If the story continues in the same continuity, but whatever. Like, who cares, man? I got real.
It's only come up a handful of times. It's not like it's a big deal,
right?
Yeah,
not even a handful of times, like less than that. So,
if you want to talk Omen 4, I guess we can, but like,
I keep forgetting. I want to watch that, and it's streaming now.
Is
on
it?
Fucking whatever? Yeah. It's
on fucking whatever. I love that streaming service.
No, like Paramount Plus or something. What is it streaming on? What was it called? The First Omen?
No. That's not Omen 4. Omen 4 was a made-for-TV movie where
the one
there's
with
a little
Sam,
girl Antichrist. No, that's the Final Conflict. That's Omen 3. There was one made after that, but before the Liev Schreiber reboot, future episode of this podcast.
I liked that one too, with Julia Stiles.
Julia Stiles and Liev Schreiber. Yep.
I liked that. I mean, it wasn't as good as the original, but I thought it was pretty all right. It was entertaining. So the First Omen, the one that came out this year, is on Hulu already.
That I did know. Yes.
And I really want to see it because I heard good things about it, and I like that series in general. Yeah.
I watched all the theatrically released Omen movies during the pandemic because
you watched every movie during the pandemic.
I watched a lot of them. I watched over 400 films during the pandemic.
I would say that we should compile a list of episodes where you mention a movie that you watched first during the pandemic, but I feel like it would probably be easier to count the ones that you don't say that in.
Accurate.
Of which there may be 2.
Maybe.
That's my guess.
Straight up, maybe.
Yeah, dude.
But yeah, no, I dig this movie. I love so Michael Mann's choices to play Hannibal Lecter in this movie before landing on Brian Cox. John Lithgow.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mandy Patinkin.
I don't know who that is.
Inigo Montoya.
Oh, yeah. Oh, maybe.
Brian Dennehy. Fists Brian Dennehy.
Yeah.
And director William Friedkin.
That's the one you wanted.
I mean, I do love Billy Friedkin. Make no mistake. He is one of my guys. I love him so much. One of my favorite directors. The late great recently departed Billy Friedkin. He went to Michael Mann went to visit Friedkin, both Chicago directors, like directors out of Chicago, goes to visit him while he's cutting together To Live and Die in LA, which comes out the previous year, which if you guys have not seen To Live and Die in LA, fucking go watch To Live and Die in LA. That movie rules.
Is that, yeah. So I've always thought that, and I always thought it was a pretty well-known film. But the other day I was reading something and somebody was like, oh, it's so underrated and underseen. I'm like, really? Like, everybody I know likes this movie. Like, it's a big, it's a cult classic for sure, but it's a big deal.
It is. I think it's a great movie.
So I'm not crazy then.
I don't think you are.
Okay.
It's a top tier Friedkin movie for me. And I'm a guy who loves Friedkin. I will admit I don't like every Friedkin movie because some of them are
You're a
legitimately
Friedkin freak.
bad.
Yeah.
I kind of am. I kind of love Billy F.
What will people say, Steven?
When they find that I'm a
when
Friedkin
they hear
freak?
that you're a Friedkin freak, dude? What will they say when they find that it's true, dude?
No, what will they do when they find that it's true?
They might say different things too. Who knows?
I mean, I don't really care if they label me a Friedkin freak because there ain't no denying the truth.
Yeah, dude.
That is a 90s Christian music reference, a 90s CCM reference for those uninitiated.
DC talk like a motherfucker.
Hashtag sorry not sorry. But no, we what was I saying? Oh, so Mann goes to visit Friedkin while he's cutting together To Live and Die in LA and goes, "Hey, I want you to play this Hannibal Lecter guy." And Friedkin's like, "I'm not an actor, I'm a director." He goes, "No, but you are this character." And Friedkin goes, "Fuck you. No, I'm not. Find someone else. But you know who'd be great as your lead? That guy right there." Points at the screen, and it's William Petersen in To Live and Die in LA, who was up to that point a relative unknown. He was a Chicago theater actor, prefers to be a Chicago theater actor. Was a Steppenwolf guy from like way back.
Born to be Wild. Yeah.
Most people probably know him best as Grissom from CSI.
No, you said a Steppenwolf. You said a Steppenwolf guy, and there was a band. I was making a joke because the band Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago.
Like Magic Carpet Ride. Born to...
I know who Steppenwolf the band is. I was talking about the Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago.
To be Wild.
Steppenwolf Theater.
Gotcha.
Steppenwolf in Chicago. Steppenwolf Theater.
There you go.
See, I can do that too, Tucker.
Yeah, but that's cool. What's next?
And so I mean, but that's basically how Friedkin or how Petersen got the part, is through Friedkin's recommendation. They wanted like bigger names. They suggested fucking everybody in Hollywood, and Mann stuck to his guns. He's like, "No, I want Petersen. I want this guy." And he got cast, and I think he's incredible in this. Like, I think he's really well done, or really, his performance is really well done. Good God.
They cooked him long enough, Steven. He's just a little crispy on the outside, but still pretty soft inside, you know? Yeah.
That's just what you want. That's just what you want out of a performance. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, is phenomenal. It's such a good performance. I think he's a really great lead. And I think the fact that most people at this time didn't know who he was speaks to his advantage here, because you're not going in with preconceived notions, and you can really believe that this guy is that obsessed. And Petersen plays it really well. Like, I love his performance in this. And I think, I mean, yeah, I don't know. He's definitely my favorite Will Graham.
I don't buy Eddie Norton.
And I don't either.
I don't buy him at all.
No.
That's just a big fat no for me. Like,
that's stunt casting. That's, hey, this guy is popping, let's put him in this movie.
He's not Will Graham, though.
He's not.
Edward Norton is a fantastic actor, but Edward Norton could never be Will Graham.
Mm-mm.
Never.
I mean, they have some similarities in that they're weirdly obsessive about things, about very specific things, but like, you're right. No. Edward Norton doesn't work in the role. He just doesn't.
I think I think Petersen is the best. I agree with you on that, Steven.
100% agree.
And I think that as much as the show tried to distance itself from the film, I don't think that Will would exist the way it does without Petersen's will.
Agreed. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know they're both going off the same source material, but even so, like, Brett, thoughts on William Petersen?
Not really. No. I mean, you know me. I don't really have a whole lot to say about actors most of the time.
He was fine, right?
He was fine. Yeah. I mean, again, this goes back to what I was saying. Like, I'm so indifferent to this movie and everything about it. I don't know why. I don't know why. I wish I knew why. I wish I could tell you.
I wish I knew also.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what it is. It was just like this. This is a fine film. These are fine actors. There's some I love in this movie. But oh no, I got nothing, guys. I got nothing.
You know who else I love in this movie and also everything else he's ever done?
Who dat?
Dennis Ma fucking Farina.
Come on. Come on.
Yeah, man.
You know, I agree with you, but there were some parents in this movie. So the blind gal is
Joan
um
Allen.
is John Travolta's wife in Face Off.
Yep.
And the one detective that they work with is the dad from Life Goes On. You guys remember Life Goes On?
Yeah.
The show? Yeah,
Vaguely.
he was the dad on that. And so I felt like it was just like I don't know. It's always weird watching this movie because so many people pop up to where like you almost have to stop for a minute and be like, "Wait, what do I know them from? I know them from something." They're not that guy actors because you're not like, "Oh, it's that guy from everything." It's more like I know this person from something very specific, but it's going to take me a second to figure out what it is.
You know that actor's name? I shouted it out earlier in the episode.
Who?
That is Bill Smitrovich.
Oh yeah, dude. He's in
Co-
lots of stuff, you know.
Co-star of The November Man. See our previous episode on The November Man.
Oh, you guys love that movie.
He's the guy that delivers the line. We called
The
you the
iconic
November
line.
Man. You know why
It
we called you the
truly
November
was
Man?
a November Man.
Because there was nothing left.
Oh.
Yep, he's the guy. But you've also got like The Wire's Frankie Faison in here, playing a different character than the character he plays in the next 3 of these films. He's the only actor to be in 4 of these things.
I can't believe they didn't somehow shoehorn him into Hannibal Rising.
I kind of am too. Like
very surprised.
I mean, he's the guy. Like no one else shows up that often, but there he is, man. He keeps coming back for more. And I'm pretty sure I recognized one of the guys from The Thing in this. I want to say Peter Maloney was in this. Was he not?
Peter Maloney? Yeah,
Maloney. He was. Yeah, he's the guy
who plays the doctor.
Yeah, he's the guy whose like hand turns into the weird thing and he like can't talk yet, so he just kind of screams. Yeah, dude. But yeah, he's got like the same haircut and facial hair that he does in The Thing, and I'm like, oh, I know that guy. Like there's just a string of that guy actors in this movie, and I love it for that. Like I love movies with just a murderer's row of character actors, particularly like before they're popping character actors.
Speaking of before they're popping, we mentioned it before, but your boy Chris Elliott.
Yes.
Just not even being a comic relief character. Like you see him there and you're like, "Oh, he's going to be like the dumb detective or he might say a joke or something." But no, he's just a detective guy.
You know? I was like at the time I'm sure like he was just that's just a dude.
Yeah, right? That's kind of us bringing in our own baggage into it. Like up to this point, he hasn't done much. This is only his 4th movie, like his 4th credited role on IMDb.
He wasn't even on SNL at this point, I don't believe.
No, he absolutely was not on SNL at this point. Like he doesn't get onto SNL till much later, until 94 is when he starts his SNL run. So we've still got to like he hasn't even done Cabin Boy yet.
He's just a dude in this movie. He's just a dude that auditioned for this movie and got that one line.
He's like the Ted Raimi character in the last 2 Jack Ryan movies. Like you know him from everything because it's Ted Raimi, and you're like expecting like something, and he's just like a guy on a computer in the background who like says a couple lines here and there.
Oh, you mean they waste him like they waste Jack Black in Enemy of the State? Great movie, but boy, they waste Jack Black in that movie.
I mean, yes. It's like they didn't know what they had. But yeah, he's just a guy at the table. Like he's just and Dan Butler, who played Bulldog on Frasier, is another one of those guys in this movie. He also is in Silence of the Lambs, also like Frankie Faison playing a completely different character.
Yep.
But he's only in those 2. Like he's one of the 2 people in this movie that show up in any of the others.
Wait, Barney doesn't show up in Hannibal?
No, Barney is in like the next 3. Frankie Faison's in 4 of these, but like they're the only 2 actors that show up in
who
like 2 consecutive ones.
Who's his? Oh,
Like playing different characters. Sorry, yeah.
That was my mistake because I got them mixed up. No, for
Frankie
no
Faison
particular reason.
plays
I just got
Barney.
them mixed up. No big deal. Moving on. Why you make me edit this shit, man? We got this dead air.
You're the one that said moving on. I thought you had something to move on to.
No, I was telling you it was time. It's time to get going. Anyway.
Well,
Not like leave, like not be done with the podcast, but like
no. You already said we're done.
no, because I made a mistake, and it made me feel embarrassed. So I was trying to move on from that.
I see.
Yeah.
Let's talk the ending of this movie, because the ending is very different from the book. The remake keeps the original ending from the novel.
That's why it sucks.
So in the original novel, the final showdown does not take place in Dollarhide's house. Dollarhide is able to escape, and Will goes back to Florida with his family, and because Lecter has given Dollarhide his address, he shows up there, and the two of them have a very tense showdown, and before Dollarhide is finally shot by Graham's wife Molly, who kind of comes in as the savior figure for Will in that moment, which I like. I like that, because in a real sense his family is what saves him. The fact that he has a family that these guys like Lecter and Dollarhide don't, I think, is the thing that kind of keeps him from going to the dark side. I think it's very telling that that is an aspect of Will Graham's character that is absent from the TV show. If you take my meaning there. Because I think it is his family that ultimately saves him. So to have Molly be the one that steps in and saves him in those final moments is really thematically pretty great. But that is ultimately how the novel ends. But this movie kind of does away with all of that and actually gives Will the happy ending.
And I
like.
Yeah, I actually prefer that because I understand the meaning of involving the family at the end and having her save him and everything like that. That's cool. Like that's a really cool idea and it works, but I kind of like that his family is never in danger in this movie because I don't know, it's nice that there's no collateral damage.
They are, but they aren't.
Well, I'm saying they talk about it in the beginning when he's talking about leaving.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm just gonna be talking to people, going to the crime scenes and stuff. Like, I'm not gonna be physically involved, so you don't have to worry about like me getting hurt or you guys getting involved. He has a whole speech about that,
right?
And then for all of that to just, I don't know. I like that he was right. I don't want him to be wrong about that.
Yeah. And I think, I think and I think this is something that most of the adaptations of Harris's works like fold in. And I think it might be emblematic of his writing and his worldview. I think he's just an inherently pessimistic individual. Because the implication is that Will is even further traumatized by that final showdown. He's further injured, and the implication is that his wife will leave him as a result of him getting back involved again. And
I don't like that.
Them at danger. So I think there's some kind of inherent pessimism, some inherent negativity. And I think at its worst, you get something like Hannibal, which is so dark and so twisted and so fucked up that it's almost oppressive to engage with.
Yeah.
And at its best, it's something that can like be manipulated into like some very interesting art, like Silence of the Lambs, where you were able to kind of bring out those darker elements and juxtapose them with something a little lighter, like Clarice Starling's optimism in spite of everything working against her. And I think that's a very interesting juxtaposition. But I think when he gets away with that and leans into his darker impulses, I think that's where and again, that deals with focusing on Lecter as our main character, I think that's when it starts to go off the rails a little bit and becomes, at least for me personally, a little too much.
Yeah, it's like, you notice how they're still making Despicable Me movies, but they only made that one Minions movie?
They did 2 Minions movies.
They only made those 2 Minions movies.
Yeah.
They only made those 3. It's a bad example. But what I'm saying is, like, you take a character that is everybody's favorite character from a film, but the reason it's their favorite character is because it works in small doses and they don't overdo it.
Right.
And then you make a whole movie just about that character.
Mm-hmm.
It's not interesting anymore.
Agreed.
And I was about to make another bad example because I was going to be like if they just made like the villains are the most interesting parts of most superhero movies, but if they just made a villain movie, it would suck, or that wouldn't be a good idea. But they've done that a few times. So.
Like Venom and Carnage and Joker and Morbius and Craven and
my metaphors are bad. My examples are bad, but I think you understand what I'm talking about.
Suicide Squad. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely get it. Like it's the notion that it's like, good example, Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack Sparrow's the breakout character of that first movie, but the crux of the story is on Will and Elizabeth and their relationship and their romance. That's the crux of the story, is that relationship. After that first trilogy ends, you do 2 movies where it's just all about Jack Sparrow, and those movies are horseshit. They're terrible because you're focusing on a character that was, to your point, Tucker, very good only in small doses.
He's the Steve Urkel of Pirates of the Caribbean.
it's like taking a show like Friends that was really popular and deciding to do a spin-off featuring the Joey character.
Joey, yeah.
That's going to go really fucking well.
Yeah.
It totally did. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But then, I don't know, then you have other examples like Frasier.
Right, because Frasier's a character with interesting potential who's good as part of the ensemble, but also good when he's able to do his own thing. And Kelsey Grammer is also a good enough actor to be able to carry that role for 20 years. Okay. Whereas something like, Joey's but by the end of Friends, Joey was a one-note character.
Yeah, Jack he got dumber.
Was only ever a one-note character. Like, you can't really spin those things off. And I think Hannibal Lecter was so effective because he was used so sparingly. Because he was the seasoning rather than the main dish. And so when you make that the main dish, it's like serving a salt lick with little pieces of turkey scattered around it. And you're just like, well, damn, this is really fucking salty. Yeah. It's because you have nothing but the seasoning. And that's just no good.
I agree 100%.
And I think Hannibal then is the exception to that rule, because it goes beyond just the darkness of that character and makes it about the relationship and the interplay between 2 characters rather than just an exploration of one really despicable person.
Yeah.
And so I think that is the exception to the rule in that particular instance, where you can spin off and focus on that character and make it palatable for the masses.
I want another just completely original film where Hannibal Lecter is a very important side character.
Yeah.
Where do we go when we're done with the Will Grahams and the Clarice Starlings? Who's next?
You need another cop. Like, you've got the veteran cop, you've got the rookie. I think you do.
I was gonna say, I think you kind of maybe. Well, how would you get anybody but a cop? Maybe a doctor, maybe a lawyer.
Maybe.
I think a doctor would be good.
Let's say, what sort of profession would grant them access to Hannibal Lecter? That's the hurdle you have to get over.
The doctor's an interesting one, because then you've almost got this interplay of them as equals, because Lecter's also a doctor. So you've got basically these 2 doctors kind of facing off against each other, and it becomes kind of a battle of wits, battle of wills. But that, we kind of already did that with Hannibal, though. That's kind of what Hannibal is. So
yeah, but it sucked.
No, I'm sorry. The show
bad.
Hannibal.
Oh, I thought you meant the movie.
No.
And
Sorry,
I
the
was like,
show.
with who? Mason Verger? Like,
No,
what's going
no.
on? Like, I was
No.
confused, but I was with you. Like, I was like, all right, if Steven said so.
No, the show Hannibal. Like Will Graham kind
Yeah.
of takes on that role.
Yeah, agreed.
So I don't know. I don't think we should be. This is the Hannibal Lecter well is not a well we should keep dipping back into, in my opinion. I'm okay with kind of leaving it where it fucking is. If Thomas Harris wants to write another book, then maybe we can do something else. But I don't. Here's the thing: I don't think he wants to, and I think the last two novels that he's written with a gun to his head are pretty much evidence of that. Like he's like, "Fuck you! You want this? Here you go. Eat your shit, peasants."
Well, I would have watched 2 more seasons of Hannibal just for the very thing that I was talking about, because they had exhausted everything that they could from the books, honestly.
Well, if they'd gotten the 2 more seasons, they would have just spaced out the storyline that they tell over that last season, because those were supposed to be 2 separate seasons. There was supposed to be the season for Red Dragon, a season for Hannibal, and a season for Hannibal Rising. But they had to like smash those last 2 into one season because they were going to get canceled.
Well,
which is why that last season is so rushed.
How would they do Hannibal Rising? They'd have to completely recast the whole show.
No, they would do it through a series of flashbacks, and he's tracking down the Raishi Fawn's character as an adult.
I was gonna say so
you have the 2 stories running concurrently, which is kind of what happens in that season.
Oh, I was gonna say, so only just take the good parts from Hannibal Rising, but then I remembered there aren't any good parts of Hannibal Rising, so
right. I don't remember anything about that movie. Like, I was legitimately trying to remember stuff about that movie today. Couldn't.
I checked out when the mask showed up. I was like, why? Fucking why?
It's a fucking piece of iconography. It's central to the IP. That's why. Literally no other reason.
Not for me. That's not what I think of when I think of Silence of the Lambs or Manhunter or any of those movies.
But it's one of the most iconic images. Like, anytime you talk Hannibal Lecter, anytime someone's parodying that, what are they doing? They're doing the guy on the gurney, like straight jacketed in with the mask. That's what they're doing every fucking time.
Dude, yeah.
You can buy that mask as a Halloween costume. Like,
I agree with you. I'm just saying, that's not, that ain't me, man. That ain't me. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, yeah, but you're not the only person that watches movies.
It's a fucking afterthought. It's a really cool part of the second film of Silence of the Lambs. It's a real cool part of that, but I could take it or leave it, honestly.
Fair.
Yeah.
Tucker, what do you think about the score?
So I think, I'm so glad that you asked, Steven, because I think it's really weird. It's almost ambient. But it's like if someone were making ambient music with just an 80s synthesizer.
And
I've, like, outside of this movie, I've never heard anything like that before. And surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, as broad as my tastes tend to be, I am kind of into ambient music. There's a show that comes on weekly on the radio called Hearts of Space.
I love Hearts of Space. Yes.
And so that comes on Sunday nights, and I don't listen to ambient music outside of that much, but I tune in as often as I can because it's nice. Like, you kind of set aside a time, and it's almost always something that you can just really chill out to. And it's nice. Jimmy and I used to sit on the porch and just like silently listen to Hearts of Space for 2 hours, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's Michael Rubini and the Reds is the name of the group that does it. I had, for whatever reason, I had it in my head that it was Tangerine Dream, and it is definitely not Tangerine Dream. But it's Tangerine Dream adjacent, I would say.
And I think the score and the needle drops in this film work so well together because they all every piece of music, whether it's the score or the soundtrack in this film, it all has the same kind of vibe. with the exception of In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, but for a very good reason. For a
Yeah,
very good reason.
you said you had something to say about the song "In the Garden of Eden" by Ron Butterfly.
You son of a bitch.
I was doing the Simpsons bit.
I was thinking about it today when I was watching this film, and I was like, oh shit, like, if he was listening to this on CD, like, when this song was over, if he wasn't done with the thing he was doing, it would go to a completely different song. The song that follows this on that record is nothing like In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida at all. Complete tonal shift, complete genre change. It's good, but I used to own that record, and In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida takes up the entirety of one side of an LP.
Not surprising at
So
all.
I feel like the reason it makes sense that he picked this song is because not only is it weird, it gets weird and confusing. And like, if you were a blind person and someone was blasting this would make me more confused than just like a normal song.
Right.
Because it gets kind of surreal and ambient in the middle, for like 15 minutes, So you have that, you have essentially 17 minutes and 5 seconds to do the thing you're trying to do. And if it turns off, that's fine. You're not going to lose focus. But if it goes to another song, that would be a problem. So I think it makes sense that he chose that song because it's so long, the tone of the song, and the fact like that at the end of it wasn't going to go into something different.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but like, to me, that makes sense why you would do that if you were in the situation he was in. If you were trying to kill this blind girl and like, make her real confused, but also you're a straight up crazy ass serial killer guy who has quirks, you're probably gonna. Does it make sense? Am I making sense?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm tracking with you.
Yeah,
I'm tracking with you.
Good, all right. I feel like I'm over explaining now, so yeah.
It also, I think, just works really well just in terms of general vibes.
Yeah, absolutely, because it can be in certain contexts, it can be a spooky song, and it works as a spooky song in this movie for sure.
It's very atmospheric. It's very ambient. It creates an atmosphere all on its own, and I think that's the right. No, I think that's the right atmosphere for what both the character and the filmmaker are trying to convey, which is why I think it works so well.
I think when you play a song in its entirety and make it part of the focus of what you're doing in the film, you have to really give credit to the editors for making it work. Because you can shoot all day. If you don't have somebody who knows what they're doing in the editing room, you're not going to hit the timing right. It's not going to flow as well. Like, that's the most, when you're doing what we used to call in theater class a mood exercise, which is basically taking a song and doing some sort of sketch to it, which is essentially what this is, because this scene begins with the song and ends with the song.
Right.
And the song's always there. When you do that, timing is very important, and you don't want it to be campy to where like every movement you're doing is based on the beat.
Right.
But sometimes when it hits, you have to hit. Like, you have to take certain beats and make something happen, and this film does it very, very well. And like I say, that's all due to the editing.
Exactly. Agreed. And I will go ahead and shout out the editor, a Romanian editor named Dov Hainig. He has worked with Michael Mann on his 2 previous films, Thief and The Keep. Works on this film and then goes on to also work on Michael Mann's TV movie LA Takedown, then Last of the Mohicans. He is the editor on Under Siege, The Fugitive, The Crow, Street Fighter, Heat, Chain Reaction, and Alex Proyas's Dark City.
Like, well, that's a resume right there. Damn.
Right?
Hell yeah.
Just an and he had worked for like 20 years before this movie. He'd already been like an editor for 20 years before this movie even came out. So like he is kind of a prolific editor. Starts with Romanian films before making his way to Hollywood. But then like gets in with Mann, and as Mann ascends, so does he. He also does the Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell film Overboard. Like just a really incredible, prolific editor. So since we're talking about him, I wanted to go ahead and shout out him and his career. Just like an incredible editor.
Fuck yeah, dude. There's some films where that you just mentioned that I could see the final part of this film being maybe what got him the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it works. There's one other element that is in the book, rather essential to the book and other adaptations of the story, that is completely absent from this film. It was done, but Mann decided not to put it in the film, which were the tattoos that Dollarhide wears.
Yeah, you do get a few images of the painting, one of the paintings of the Red Dragon, and then I think the way he's laying when he dies and where the blood is, I think that's supposed to symbolize that. But I think it's real subtle. The whole Red Dragon shit, the Red Dragon of it all, if you will, is like super subtle.
Well, you know the reason they didn't name this film Red Dragon, right?
I did at one point, but I've had some inebriates this evening, so
I do not.
Forgive me.
So Dino De Laurentiis, we've talked about him on this podcast before, was the producer on this film. And the year before this movie came out or was set to be released, another film that he produced was released, a Michael Cimino film called Year of the Dragon. And Year of the Dragon bombed. And De Laurentiis' takeaway was, if you have dragon in the title, no one will show up.
Oh, do the accent, Steven. Do the accent.
If you put the dragon in the title, yes, see, no one show up to movie. So we take a dragon, we take out the title. We don't call it just red. Maybe we call something different. Like what is person's job? He is FBI. He work. He hunt down the men, right? We call it Manhunter. There we go. His name of movie.
Wait! You slipped into Russian. And no matter what accent you do, Steven, it always ends in a Russian accent. I don't know how that happens, but I love it.
What you're talking about? I have no idea what on earth you're talking about.
Give him 30 seconds and he'll be in a tracksuit.
Just keep doing this for like 30 seconds. Yeah, it'll happen.
I have no idea what you're talking about. It's not something I do. I don't do it any time.
No, you did, dude. You did. You slipped in
Russian. No, fuck you. I did not.
You did.
I would never.
Briefly, you dipped and then came back out.
Fantastic. Well done, everybody.
I had a friend in college. Every accent he did was French. We'd be like, "Hey, do an Italian accent." And he goes, and it would just a clearly, obviously, like French, like just full bore French accent.
So. Jacques Cousteau.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, Tom Noonan actually did have the tattoos. Like he would sit in makeup and get like the tattoos applied to him.
Oh, they shot it and we never got to see it?
Exactly. Did the promotional shit for it and everything.
Put it on the 4K. Give me some footage of it.
But William Friedkin thought it was too over the top. And so it was just completely excised out of the movie.
You mean Michael Mann?
Michael Mann is what I meant. What did I say?
You said
William Friedkin.
You said William Friedkin. I'd watch William Friedkin Manhunter. I don't think it'd be as good as this, but it would be something special.
It'd be so good.
It would be something special for sure.
It would be. I mean, I don't know how you would say it wouldn't be as good as this. It'd be To Live and Die in L.A. And that movie's a fucking masterpiece.
I don't know. I think this film.
Willem Dafoe as the Red Dragon. Like, come on.
Now that's pretty genius, actually.
I think this particular story fits Michael Mann's aesthetic so well. I think it's the most Michael Mann movie out there outside of like Miami Vice, maybe.
I was going to say Miami Vice is the most Michael Mann movie that ever Michael Manned. Are you kidding me?
And I would even say like it's my second favorite Michael Mann movie too. Of course, first being Collateral.
I mean, Heat is right there.
Yeah, but Collateral?
Yeah.
Heat is great. Look, I will say that Heat is his best film. Yes.
Heat is one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
But Heat is number 3 on my Michael Mann list, though I recognize it is his best because, Collateral and Manhunter exist.
You're a madman.
I'm crazy. I'm nuts. I'm full of hot takes.
You're full of something.
Dude.
What else? Anything else on Manhunter, gentlemen?
Look, I don't know. But I am really interested to, like, I'm not trying to rush us. If anybody has anything else to say, but I have probably for the last 20 minutes been like, did this movie do well? What's that all about? That's what's been going on in my head.
Well, I have an answer to that question. This movie had a. I don't. Hang on, I don't have the budget. Oh, so we're looking at a 14 to 15 million dollar budget on this movie. The box office gross on this movie I just closed because I clicked the wrong part of that tab. It makes 8.6 million domestic, another 1.5 thousand internationally. So it makes roughly 8.6 worldwide. So to answer your question, no, it did not do well. It opens on August 15th, 1986. It opens at number 8. At number 8. Also new this week, the number 1 movie in America this week, also a new movie, David Cronenberg film, one of the all-time best Jeff Goldblum performances. It's Das Fly. In second place, Armed and Dangerous.
I don't even know what the fuck that is.
That is the comedy with Eugene Levy and John Candy, where they're playing security guards. It's got Meg Ryan in it as well.
I like all those people. Does it suck? Is that why I haven't heard of it?
I saw it like on TV as a kid. So like and I haven't seen it since, but it always kind of lives in my head rent free as a result of that.
Well, add it to the list.
In third place, just an incredibly great film. Opened at number 1 the week before. It's been in theaters for 5 weeks. It's Jimmy Cameron's Aliens.
Word.
In fourth place, it's The Karate Kid, Part 2.
That has so you know how sequels be like recapping the end of the first movies or the other movies sometimes, how that's sometimes a thing a series will do. Karate Kid 2 has the best recap and follow-up of any film ever, because it ends like he wins the tournament and stuff, and that's
right.
It's like how in Rocky it shows little bits of the last fight, and it's the same thing in Karate Kid 2. You see most of the tournament, and then you move on to the new film with them walking outside, and like Reese starts giving them shit, and Mr. Miyagi like beats his ass, and then like pretends like he's gonna kill him, and like right when he gets to his neck, he honks his nose and says, "Hump." And it's the best thing ever. It's probably the best thing to be put on film. Is that I may be overselling it. I am overselling it. It's not the best thing, but it's really satisfying. It is a fine piece of cinema in the context with which I just described it as being like the follow-up to an ending in another film. What was in fifth place, Steven?
Nothing in Common, the Tom Hanks Jackie Gleason movie. That
those guys too.
No one remembers. Like Tom Hanks is like an ad exec, and Jackie Gleason's his dad, I think. You got Ava Marie Saint, Hector Elizondo, Celia Ward in that movie. Like Dan Castellaneta in a small role there also.
Oh, nice.
Homer Simpson himself. So but the poster is one of those great, like where you got two people kind of doing the making angry faces at each other. It's a great poster,
like a Neil Simon play.
100%. Yes. Rounding out the top 10 in sixth place, we've got Top Gun in its 14th week. Has already grossed over $118 million. In seventh place, Ruthless People. That's that Danny DeVito, Bette Midler comedy, right?
The last time that you brought this up, I went on the longest Weird Al tangent ever.
Really? You go on tangents on this show?
To the point to where I had to like wait until the show was over to finish it because you guys I was going on so long about it. You guys remember that?
Now you're going on so long about how you went on so long in that tangent.
There's the Robert Palmer song, Ruthless People, and Weird Al does Toothless People. The breath is lethal. No? Nobody?
I do not remember that. I might not
It's
have been
Mick
there.
Jagger who does that song. I apologize.
So Manhunter is clocks in at number 8. And then rounding out the top 10, you've got One Crazy Summer at 9 and the Mike Nichols film Heartburn at number 10.
Fuck? What's that? I've never heard of that.
It's Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson. It's written by, I want to say written by Elaine May, based on, or it's based on a book by Elaine May, maybe, based on her marriage to, or no, Nora Ephron. It's Nora Ephron, sorry, based on her marriage to Bernstein, I think, of Woodward and Bernstein fame.
Yeah, all of that sounds like something I'd be way into, but I've never heard of this, and that's insane.
Yeah, you've never heard of Heartburn, dude?
No. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a little disappointed in myself.
I'm kind of disappointed in you too, man.
I'm kind of upset, honestly.
Yeah, directed by Mike Nichols, written by Nora Ephron, starring Meryl Streep, Jack Nicholson, and Jeff Daniels. Maureen Stapleton, Stockard Channing, Catherine O'Hara.
Okay.
Milos Forman.
You don't even need to say anything. I'm sold, Steven. You don't have to keep going.
Mercedes Rule, Joanna Gleason, America's Worst Human Being, Kevin Spacey.
Look, Steven, I can't watch it tonight, okay? I can't. And the more you talk about it, the more there's a chance that I will make a bad decision and watch it tonight. Now, what's it called again?
It's called Heartburn.
Okay.
Oh, you know who has an uncredited role as Rachel's niece?
Oh, I'm gonna be so mad when you tell me.
Your girl Natasha Lyonne.
You bitch.
Blade 3's own Natasha Lyonne. You know who else has an uncredited role as an airplane passenger?
Stop right there, Steven. I've had enough.
Tony Shalhoub.
I can't take any more, Steven. You stop right there.
That's all I got. The tomatometer score on Michael Mann's Manhunter is a 94%, certified fresh, like a motherfucker. It's got a 75 on Metacritic, generally favorable reviews based on 22 critics. The critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes: Michael Mann introduces audiences to Hannibal Lecter for the first time in Manhunter, a modish thriller that fleshes out Thomas Harris's heinous creations with an elegant, chilling detachment.
Fuck yeah, dude.
And Tucker, you want to give a guess as to where Letterboxd lands on 1986's Manhunter?
This might come out of the mold a bit because it's been getting a reappraisal for a long time. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are coming around to this movie in a big, big way. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take a risk and say somewhere between 3.7 and 4.1.
Tucker, it is a 3.8.
Yes, dude.
Well done.
Not bad.
Yes, dude.
Well done. 3.8 on Letterboxd. So out of 5 stars, then, Tucker, how are you rating 1986's Manhunter?
Well, there is not one frame of this film that I have any issues with, which to me, that makes it a perfect film, which means I have to give it a 5 out of 5.
Okay. Brett, what about you?
2.5. Man, I wish I could explain why. There's nothing here. I don't. Head empty, no opinion. I've let you guys down this episode. I got nothing.
It happens to all of us.
It's just
from time to time.
It's almost as if I didn't watch a movie at all yesterday.
No, that's wild.
Yeah, I don't get it. Wild. I don't understand. Maybe it's just my headspace this weekend. I don't know. I know it hasn't been a good one.
Could be. So,
yeah.
It's a 4 out of 5 for me. I love this movie. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I will, if there's a 4K, I want to know so I can buy it. Like, I will put it on my shelf. I will purchase it. It's great. But yeah, like I keep like it's Silence of the Lambs is number one for me. But God, if this is such a close second, like in my head. And I think a lot of it is the stylistic touches that Michael Mann puts in here, because the guys that come after Demi are journeyman guys, Ridley Scott and Brett Ratner. They're more journeyman guys, and so they're not putting the artistic spin on it that Demi and Mann are, which I think elevates these two movies above the rest of them to such a significant degree. Yeah, no, this movie rules. It rips. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah,
word. Good job, you guys. We did it. We
did it. That is our episode on 1986's Manhunter. If you've liked what you've heard and would like to hear more, then I would recommend you head over to patreon.com/disenfranchpod, where you can find hours and hours and hours of extra bonus podcasts, various shows where we talk about movies that killed off popular franchises, or maybe movies about religious stuff, or maybe just video games, like just video games. There's episodes about just video games. There's a couple commentary tracks back there. Like, there's so much stuff behind that paywall over at patreon.com/disenfranchpod. For just $5 a month, all that can be yours, and for no cost whatsoever. On that same feed, you can access the official discussion of the Disenfranchised podcast. We post every new episode there on the Patreon. So if you sign up for free, you can put that into your podcatcher and absolutely receive those episodes for free and comment on them, because that's pretty much the only comment section we read and respond to. So get on it. Patreon.com/disenfranchpod. You can also find us on social media. We are on Instagram, Letterboxd, Facebook, YouTube, and Blue Sky at disenfranchpod. Go find us in all of those places. You can also please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, really wherever you get your podcasts. Let other people know where they can find us and what you like about us. And if you do that, we will read your review here on the podcast. You will also read any mail that you send us at disenfranchpod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want us to discuss. As long as it's a failed franchise starter, as long as it fits in our format, we will consider it. So head on over there, write us an email, let us know what you think. We'll read that here as well. I'm your host, Stephen Foxworthy. You can find me on Instagram, where you can find pictures of behind-the-scenes filming of Circle City Supernatural 2. Get some sneak peeks there from my day of filming with our good friend JP Leck. But you can also find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Chewy Walrus. Brett, are you on social media these days? And if so, where?
No, my shunning of social media continues. So you can only really find me on Letterboxd. It's sus_warlock.
Fair enough. And Tucker, what about yourself?
Hi, it's me, Tucker, and I'm on social media in a few places. I'm on Instagram and the YouTubes as Ice909. That's ICENINE, the number 0 and the number 9. I have a page on Instagram called Tuck Mugs, Tuck_mugs. I did submit a post for that today, but I think that my social media manager has been kind of busy.
He's on vacation this weekend, I hear.
Yeah, and that's fair. So and I wasn't even expecting him to post it today. I just wanted to put it up there because I realized that I hadn't put that mug up yet, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, that's one of my main mugs. How is it not on the page yet? And it's got a cool story, and there's an extra photo. It's going to be rad. So, sometime this week, probably by the time this drops,
one would hope
it'll be live. Probably. No guarantees, but probs. I'm not going to be mad if it's not. I'm just saying probably.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. So yeah, Tuck Mugs. Tuck_mugs. You all know what it is. Send me your guest mugs. Damn it. I need guest mugs. And like, I know you're sitting there like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna do that, but I'm also multitasking while I'm listening to this podcast. No, stop doing your dishes and dry your hands. Take a picture of the mug you're using right now and send it to me with a fun story and what's in it. It's okay, I'll wait.
That's all you gotta do.
I'll wait. You can email that stuff to us at disenfranchpod@gmail.com, or you can just message, like DM us on Instagram at tuck_mugs. You can send your post that way.
All of those valid options.
It's as simple as that. But yeah, that's my social media presence.
All right. Well, that, friends, is the end of yet another episode of the Disenfranchised podcast. I have been your host, Stephen Foxworthy, for my co-hosts, Brett Wright and Tucker. Until next time, do you see?
I think so.